Hello fellow booktubers, my name is Lauren, you're watching Dreams Books Courage, and today I am doing my June and July wrap-up video. I've read a total of 7 books in the past 2 months, but 6 of those books were read in the month of July. So as you can probably tell, and especially if you've watched any of my videos this summer, you'll know that I've been in quite a bad reading slump for like about 2 months or so. That reading slump lasted from like May to the middle of July, so it was definitely quite a long one, and I only managed to read a single book within that time period. So that was quite sad, but now it's all better again and I'm back to normal reading, just in time for college to start back and just disrupt my reading schedule all over again, but whatever. I do love college, even if it means that I do get quite a bit less reading done. But let's go ahead and get into the books that I've read for the past 2 months. So the first book I'm talking about today is the only book that I managed to read in the month of June, and that book is Library of Souls by Ransom Riggs, and this is the finale to the Miss Peregrine's trilogy. The first book, of course, being Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. And I feel like this book kind of contributed to like further putting me into a reading slump, which is definitely not the best thing to say about a novel. This one was just so hard for me to get through for some reason, and all 3 of these books have been kind of hard for me to get to if I'm honest. So eventually I just listened to the rest of this on Audible, and that got me through this book a lot quicker than the time it would have otherwise taken me. This trilogy is definitely one that I feel like you should just go into without knowing too much about it. To give a very brief synopsis about the series, it's about a group of children who are kind of stuck in time, but they all have these amazing powers, and this one kid kind of gets wrapped up into this whole new world. That description might sound very vague, because I just feel like you should go into this without really knowing anything about it. But what I will say about this series is that it is so slow. I'm not sure if the pacing is just off or if it's the writing style, but either way, I just feel like nothing ever happens in the series, which is weird because a lot of things happen in the series, especially in the final novel. But for me, I just always feel like nothing is happening because of the way it's written. It just seems like everything's happening so slowly that you really can't get immersed into this world, and I think that really affected me in reading this book. But if you don't want to read the series, I would recommend the narrator. I thought he did quite a good job, especially of playing Jacob, but he did different voices for all the different characters, and so I really thought he was a great narrator. I would be interested in reading something else by Ransom Riggs. I feel like he'll write differently outside of this universe or something. I just really want to give him a second chance because I know a lot of people really love this series. I'm just not really one of them. I do like certain aspects of the writing style and the humor that Ransom Riggs puts into his writing, but I just don't like how it's paced through the writing, if that makes any sense. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. And I would give the trilogy overall about 4 stars. And the next 3 books that I'm going to be talking about are all a trilogy, and that is the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy by Jenny Han. And I've read these 3 books over the past 2 months. I did read some books in between these books, and although I usually go by chronological order of the books that I've read, I just feel like it'd be weird to split up this trilogy, so I'm just going to be talking about it as a whole. First, of course, we have The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I feel like I've talked about this series quite a lot throughout the past 2 months, so I'll just give a very brief synopsis. These books are about a girl named Isabel who goes by the nickname of Belly, and for her entire life, every summer, her and her mom and her brother go to a beach house with her mom's best friend and her 2 boys, which are around Belly's age. And Belly, of course, happens to be in love with one of them and has basically been running after one of them her entire life. And so that's kind of what this trilogy is all about. It's about just her finding love and growing up and becoming a more mature person. And I feel like you can definitely tell throughout the writing style and just the character development of Belly that these books over time do get more mature, although this one was definitely quite immature to start out with. I do have quite a few complaints with these books, but I don't want to get too into those within a wrap-up video, so if you want to see a trilogy review, definitely tell me down below. I don't think that this trilogy is as good as the To All the Boys I've Loved Before duology, which I think is also actually going to become a trilogy. I'm pretty sure that this was Jenny Han's second book to write, so you can definitely tell that her writing style is definitely maturing throughout the series, and so that's also a really nice feature to me. She is still really great with characters though, although I didn't really feel that much for them within this book. I definitely felt more for them throughout the trilogy. This book especially was quite a just cute and light read, and so I think it was really great for the summer. So if you're looking for a book or a trilogy with summery vibes, definitely go for this one, but just know that it's quite immature and quite juvenile to read. Even the writing style at times seems quite juvenile. I ended up having to read this trilogy on audiobook for a few reasons. First, as I said before, the writing style is kind of juvenile throughout the series, and also because when I'm in a reading slump, I feel like it's best to just read audiobooks, and it definitely was, and I feel like that's definitely part of what got me out of my reading slump. But I did end up quite enjoying this read despite its faults, and so I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. And then next, of course, we have It's Not Summer Without You by Jenny Han, and I actually wrapped this one up already within my Booktubeathon wrap-up video, so if you want to know all of my thoughts on this, definitely check out that video. Basically, this one was quite a bit more somber than the first book, and I definitely felt more for the characters within this book. It definitely took a turn from the first book, and it doesn't really have that many summery vibes to it, but it's still quite enjoyable, and I even think it's a bit more enjoyable than the first book was, especially because you feel more attached to the characters within this novel. And you can definitely see Jenny Han's improvements within her writing style in this one. And overall, I was just really happy with the way that this book turned out. And I gave this one 4.5 stars. And then, of course, we have the finale to the trilogy, which is We'll Always Have Summer. And I just really enjoyed this one overall because I felt like it was so relatable to my life. It was actually kind of weird how relatable to my life this was at some points. This book actually takes place the summer after Bellie's freshman year of college. And this summer for me is also my summer after my freshman year of college. So that was kind of weird, but I really enjoyed reading someone else's perspective after their first year of college, and I could definitely relate to a lot of the college things that she talked about. And then some things I just really couldn't relate to in this, and I disagreed with the way that some things played out. Although, of course, everything worked itself out in the end. I will tell you guys that Jenny Han is so great at writing love triangles, because often my problem with love triangles is that you can see who the end game is from the very start. Like with the Hunger Games, it's really obvious. There are just a lot of series that have very obvious love triangle end games. But this one definitely doesn't, and it kept me guessing to the very end of this novel. So if you want to read about a really great love triangle, I definitely read this one. But on the flip side of that, Bellie is just such an indecisive main character. So if you really don't like indecisive main characters, maybe not reach for this one. But I can definitely say that there's a lot of improvement within the writing style and the character development throughout this trilogy, so I would say if you start this trilogy, go ahead and finish it out. But overall, this trilogy did end up having a special place in my heart, and I did really end up enjoying it. And I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. And overall, this trilogy averages out at 4.5 stars. Going back before Booktubeathon happened, I read The Long Haul by Jeff Kinney, which is the 9th book in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. And this is my favorite book overall of this series, and I've read it before, so this was my second time reading it. And I enjoyed it just as much as I did the first time around, so I won't really mention this one in this video that much, but these books are always a great time, and it did feature a road trip, so overall it was just so much fun to read again, and also to help me get out of a reading slump. Sorry this video is kind of switching back and forth with my reading, but the trilogy kind of messed that up a little bit. But I read the second book of the summer trilogy during Booktubeathon, and I ended up reading 2 books during that week, and the other novel that I ended up reading was Miss Lonely Hearts by Nathaniel West. Again, I won't talk about this one in this video because I already talked about it in my Booktubeathon wrap-up, and I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. And the final book that I'll be talking about within this video is the one that I finished right after Booktubeathon ended. And that book is actually a collection of poems, and that is the Selected Poems of T.S. Eliot. I also talked about this one quite a bit within my Booktubeathon wrap-up, so if you want to hear more about this one, go check out that video. I'll leave a link to that video down below. I do really enjoy T.S. Eliot's poems, and I am very glad that I finally read this one. My only real problem with it was that you have to do research on poetry a lot of times, so obviously I couldn't understand the poetry immediately. That's also kind of a fun thing about poetry to me since I'm an English major, so I did have quite a bit of fun researching the poems in this, but I do feel like that takes you out of the immersion of getting into the poetry, so overall I gave this collection of poems 4 stars. So those are all the books that I read within the past 2 months. I feel like I actually did pretty good considering that I was in a reading slump for most of that time, and that I read a majority of those books within the past 2 weeks of July, but hopefully August will go better for me overall within the reading sphere. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please tell me down below how many books that you managed to read in the month of July. Thank you so much for watching, and now I'm gonna go get back to reading.